Britain, it's nice to be able to talk to you and to see you. You had a chance to play a little bit last year before you shut it down. What's the difference for you now getting ready to play in 2020 in 2 weeks?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I used to listen to you with the 49ers. So, um, last year was an interesting year for me. You can never really anticipate how you're going to respond to an injury, how your body's going to respond. All of us would like to be like Adrian Peterson and be back within 4 or 5 months. But no matter how hard I pushed it, it seemed like my body just wouldn't respond the way I wanted it to. And so a few games into the season, when my knee would look like a big cantaloupe after the game, it was so swollen. Or when we flew to USC, and just from the flight alone, my knee was very swollen. I realized that I felt like more of a liability to the team than I did a strength. And so at that point, I just realized that the best thing for me and the team would be to shut it down. And it was a hard decision, but it was the right one. And I'm glad I made that decision.
Those issues all gone now?
Yes, thank goodness. I'm actually much stronger than I've ever been because I've been able to overtrain it, and it much stronger, faster than I've been even since my mission, which is, that it was a blessing in disguise that last year.
So you are been around long enough to answer this. Why is Utah so good on special teams all the time?
Yeah, I have been around long. I've been around about 30 years. So I think, and people that know Coach Witt know this. He says that special teams is the most important thing we do here. When it comes down to playing good teams, you got to find any little edge that you can. And he always talks about how in high school, special teams is the area where you put some of the guys that, aren't really into football, but their parents want them to play. And so you got to get them out on the field at some point. But when you come to Utah, you put your best players there, your starters. And if you loaf on special teams, Coach Witt says you'll never see the field anywhere else. And so it's a different mentality. It's a different paradigm when you come here. And I think that's what makes it so good, is the expectation of what we do here in special teams. And so it's great to be part of that. Being a punt returner, a kick returner, you kind of feel like you represent those squads, and those are game-changing plays. You get a punt return, that's a momentum-shifting play more than a 20-yard reception. So I think you use the momentum from special teams.
Something else, Britain, you've also seen over your time is you've seen the offense change. And with Andy Ludwig coming back last year, which again you were part of, but now heading into this year, just talk about that, how the Utes offense has just progressed and moved along during your time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I've had 3 offensive coordinators now, and I think I found that the best thing that offenses can do, are the best things, I'd say, one is find an identity. I think that the best offensive coordinators find an identity. And 2, I believe that you don't mold a team into a system that you've always had. You take what you have and you build a system for it. And I think that's one thing that Coach Ludwig is really good at, is he doesn't just try and force us into a mold. He looks at what we have, the different weapons we have, the different specialties that we bring, and he creates something to build it, or to fit that system. And I think that's the coolest thing about this year, is we've got 3 receivers over 6'5" and 2 receivers, under 5'8", like me. And so you don't try and fit us into different things. You don't try and have me blocking Mike linebackers the whole time, but you use different talents and abilities to fit your system.
So that's a great seg, what you just said, Britain, into you have all these different receivers, your different talents, and you're working with different and new quarterbacks. And it's plural as far as we know right now. What's that challenge like as a receiver?
Yeah, it definitely is different, working with different quarterbacks. And one thing that has benefited us a lot is our whole receiving core right now has game experience, which helps so much going into things. I think in a way, experience is overrated, but with certain positions, I think it is necessary. And I think that I'm a better player now because of experience. So is Brian Thompson, Solomon Enos, Samson Nakua. And that kind of gets us ready to play with different quarterbacks. I'm really excited about this quarterback battle. I'm sure everybody's following it. And I'd say the most important thing you need to know about that is all three guys competing for the job right now were voted to the leadership council. And that says a lot about the quarterback room. It says a lot about the guys and the camaraderie, the atmosphere that they have in there. And we'll basically go to war with either of them, all three of them. And it says a lot that all three of them were voted to leadership council in my mind.
Are you going to be a Swiss Army knife this year?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I don't really know what you classify me as in a position, a slot receiver, but I've always felt like just throw me out there and just call me a football player. I'll do whatever you need me to do. If you need me to block a Mike linebacker, I'm gonna try my best. But I like to be versatile and bring a different dynamic to the offense. And so I feel like I've been that way since high school. I played quarterback in high school, and I was so small. My receivers used to joke with me that I used to drop back and act like I was looking to pass when the whole time I knew in my mind I was just going to run. So yeah, I'm excited to see what we do this year.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you run some fly sweeps again, Britain. Thanks. I'll send it back to Jesse.
All right, thanks, Ted. We'll go to questions from the media now. Please use the raise hand function to get into the queue. To lead us off will be Josh Newman of the Salt Lake Tribune.
Hey, Britain, how are you?
Hey, Josh, I'm doing good.
You guys are obviously in a position now where you are going through, daily COVID testing, whether it's a spit or the swab. There's a lot of, strict protocols in place on campus. How comfortable are you and how confident are you that, that the athletic department is doing everything they can to try to keep you guys safe in the middle of this pandemic?
Yeah. Honestly, there haven't been hardly any complaints from the players here at Utah. We feel like our staff has done an amazing job. Our athletic director has been really transparent with us. And what it comes down to is, what are you willing to do in order to play a season? And most of us would prefer to play 6 or 7 games with daily COVID tests, with all these protocols and restrictions, than the opposite. And so we're willing to go through all these things. And I'm grateful to our athletic department for how transparent they've been with it, because it's not easy. I know our trainer gets sick of telling people to pull their masks up, but he does it still. And in a simple way of saying it, it's better than what the alternative would be, which would be basically fall practice with no games, which in my mind is what hell would be like. Just football practice with no game to look forward to.
Thank you, Britain.
Okay, our next question will come from Christopher Camerani of The Athletic.
Hey, Britt, you got me?
Yeah, Chris.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. Good, thanks.
I'm just wondering, at what point did you feel like you could do the things that 2018 Britain Covey could do again?
Yeah. I would say it wasn't until the very end of last season. I genuinely tried to fool myself that I was 100%. And looking back on it now, I realize I was at about 60 to 70%. Towards the end of last season, after I got some time off, got great treatment, went to a couple different doctors, I genuinely felt like I was back. And what actually benefited me the most was last year, I was on scout team towards the end of the season. And for about 5 weeks, I spent every practice going up against Jalen Johnson, Julian Blackman, Terrell Burgess, Javelin Guidry, Josh Nurse. 5 guys that are in the NFL. We've all seen what they've been doing. And I learned more in those 5 weeks than I have in my whole career about how to be a good receiver and go against good players. And I'm more confident lining up now than I've ever been, I think, because of those things. We would bounce ideas off of each other. I'd stay after and ask them about techniques and things like that. So it really was an amazing experience for me to be able to play scout team last year.
Okay, our next question will come from Josh Furlong, KSL.
Hey, Britain, can you hear me?
Yeah, Josh.
Okay. Hey, so Utah, as you've known, has obviously been known for having mostly a defensive program. The offense hasn't always been kind of the selling point to a lot of people. But with so many people returning to the offense this year, obviously replacing quarterback and a leading rusher, do you feel like the offense can take the step that it needs to and kind of start showing that Utah can be a place for offensive recruits to really start taking things serious?
Yeah. I believe I really think we're there. I like to compare us a little bit to the Seahawks. You know, if you think of the Seahawks and if you think of the tradition of the Seahawks, they've been a hard-nosed, smash mouth kind of team. They've always had a great quarterback, but they've been seen as a defensive team most of the time. And now they've kind of shifted, and their coach has done a great job of that, and Russell Wilson. And I think part of the reason is because of the experience they had on the offensive side of the ball. I hope that this year we don't drop off on the defensive end, but I hope that people start to see us as an offensive threat as well, a team that can put up big numbers and score points. But Coach Witt will always be Coach Witt. And what that means is whatever it takes to win, we're going to do it. Whether that's throw it to the receivers 40 times a game or run the ball 40 times a game, whatever it takes. And everybody knows that about our program and our coaches. And so we're not too worried about breaking out as we are just finding our niche, finding our identity as an offense.
Okay, our next question will come from Dirk Fesser, Deseret News.
Britain, can you hear me?
Hey, Dirk. Yeah, can hear you great.
Good to see you, man. Hey, let's talk about the Pac12 South race. You guys are the two-time defending champions. Do you look at it as your race to win, or is USC the team to beat?
Well, I'm gonna go typical athlete avoidance answer on this one and say, you take it one game at a time, especially when you only have 6 games guaranteed. You are so tuned into every single game you're playing. So the only team we're thinking about right now is Arizona. But there is a little bit of pride at stake of we want to return as the Pac12 South champs, and we want to be the Pac12 champs overall. And I think that gives you can respond to it in 2 ways. You can respond to it by being cocky, or you can respond to it by realizing that you've got a target on your back. And I believe that this team has enough leadership to choose the first response not the cocky response, the second response by realizing what we need to do and that we have a target on our backs.
Well, thanks a lot, Britt.
Yeah.
Okay, next question will come from Tony Siracusa.
Hey, Britt, I got a question for you in that while the Pac-12 was postponing its schedule and sitting and waiting, all the high schools in Utah were allowed to play football. Was that hard for you to sit there and watch as high school kids could play, but you couldn't as a member of the Pac-12?
I would say it was difficult. The most difficult part about this whole process has been you feel like all of this is outside of your control. And I think that's why a lot of people were, frustrated. I don't think just the players. I think the whole Pac-12 was. But I think that there were a lot of things that we didn't know. And so to criticize someone for a decision that was made or anything like that is just not right. Because I believe that people really did have our best interests in mind. So it was difficult when, my high school was playing, I could go to their game and then I couldn't play here. But there were so many factors that were outside of my control that I think most of us chose to just do what we could to be prepared. And, you don't criticize the Pac-12 or anything with how they've handled it because there's no point and you don't know everything. And it just doesn't get you anywhere. And it's always, it's like that Jack Handy quote that I always like. Before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you do criticize them, you'll be a mile away and you'll have their shoes. So I chose not to criticize anybody for any decisions that were made. And I think that we are where we are now, and I'm grateful for it.
Okay, we'll go to Tom Hackett, KSL Sports.
Cobb, you got me?
I've got you, Tom.
It's happening, man.
Hey, gonna beat you in golf again?
You can try. So I'm curious. Obviously, you're a leader now. I want to talk to you about some of the younger players on the defensive side, some of the skill positions. Clark Phillips and Nate Ritchie come to mind in particular. How are you going about kind of mentoring them? And I understand offense versus defense in practice can get heated, and anytime the offense wins, it's obviously a benefit, and you don't have to run laps because of it. But at the end of the day, you're all on the same team. So how are you helping some of those younger guys on the defensive side of things go about their business to better prepare you for the upcoming season?
Yeah. Well, I really feel like I learned so much from my freshman season all the way back in 1980. Just being a true freshman and coming onto a team, not really knowing what to expect, not knowing how to impress a coach, how to handle the pressure. And so I take a personal responsibility in those things to talk to those guys, because I experienced the same thing. And for example, I asked Nate Ritchie's locker to be right next to mine, because Nate's from Utah, he's a member of the church that I'm a part of. And he's a true freshman with expectations to play, and I know what that's like. So I guess I try and help him with the mental aspect of things. I'm not their coach. I can't help him with the physical aspect, but there's so many parts of the mental aspect that really are important if you want to come out and contribute early. And I would say the other thing is just knowing what to improve on. You'll see all these guys, and I see this in college and high school all the time. Guys work so hard, but a lot of times they don't work hard at the right things. And so I think it's important to teach people what will translate directly to the game. I'm really excited for those two players, specifically Nate Ritchie and Clark Phillips. If you want to know anybody that's determined and driven, it's Clark. Clark is he's got fire in his eyes. He wants to be the best. If I'll beat him in a one-on-one rep, he'll call me out and start clapping and be like, "Again, bring it up, let's go." So anyone with that attitude, you don't have to doubt, because they'll get to the point where they want to be at.
Okay, next question will come from Sammy Mora, Daily Utah Chronicle.
Hey, Britain, how are you?
Hey, good, Sammy.
So you've already addressed the seniority of this wide receiver core. What about the fresh faces on this team, like Money Parks? What does someone like him bring to this wide receiving core?
First of all, humor. Money is hilarious. But yeah, you've got some guys like Money Parks, Ty Jordan, Connor O'Toole. Younger guys first of all, they bring competition, which gets the best out of everybody, because even though we have seniority, it doesn't mean we are guaranteed our spots, because our recruiting classes have gotten better ever since I've gotten here, and there's some competition in the room. But I also think that it helps us focus on the basics, because sometimes when you are old, you start to get too much into the teeny details and forget that the basics a lot of times are what win you games. If you can master the basics of an offense, then you can start branching into the trick plays and things like that. But until you master those, you'll just be a jack of all trades. And you would rather be the master of something and then branch into the other things. And I think having younger guys helps you do that. It helps you go back to the basics and master those before you branch out.
Sweet. Thank you, Britain.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next question will go to Michael Lev, the Arizona Daily Star.
Hey there, Britain.
Hey, Michael.
I know what you said earlier about taking it one game at a time, but I'm wondering, given all the upsets that we've seen so far in college football, defending national champion LSU is below 500, Oklahoma lost 2 games in a row. Does that shape your approach at all to the first game, which is a game that, at least on paper, you're expected to win?
Yeah, I think you've got to try and harness that approach throughout your whole life. Live your life as if you're an underdog. Because you approach it in a way with respect to your opponent at all times and understanding of your situation. And we've got just as many question marks, I believe, as any team because of the amount of guys that we've lost. And so I think maybe this is because I've always been smaller my whole life and kind of felt like that. But I look for anything to give myself a chip on my shoulder. And I think that our team is kind of like that. And anything that can give me a chip on my shoulder and a little bit of edge mentally, you search for that underdog mentality. So yeah, I think that seeing that helps us, but also just trying to harness that mentality at all times.
Sure. And I wanted to ask you real quick about one of your teammates, Britain Covey. You were talking earlier about sort of fitting the weapons into the system. How would you describe what his game is like? How do you cover him? He seems like a unique playmaker in this league.
Yeah. Well, Brant is a perfect example of what I was talking about, of fitting a person to a system, or fitting a system to a person rather than the other way around, because he's like a jack of all trades. He's Swiss Army knife, but he's got the size as well. And I've never seen someone that big be able to move like a receiver or a skill running back like Brant, at least not in college. And I think it excites Coach Ludwig with the amount of things that you can do with a player like that. You can even put him in the backfield. You can line him up at receiver, at tight end. Probably could even play left tackle. Who knows? Brant's so athletic.
Okay, I think we have time for one more, and we'll close it with Kelsey Khaleesi Ekberg, Cronkite PBS.
Thanks so much for your time. And this actually kind of builds off what you were just talking about. With the crazy year we've been having, you've actually gotten an opportunity to be a viewer on College Football Saturday and gotten a chance to potentially watch teams you could see later on this season. Have you been able to watch? What's it been like? And have you learned anything from having this late start?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've learned a lot. It's been interesting to sit back and watch college football from a viewer's perspective after having played it for a few seasons. I feel like everybody's kind of becoming a student of the game. It's been great. I've had the opportunity to work alongside Yogi Roth at the Pac12 networks for the last month or so, and an internship. And he's taught me a lot about just football, broadcasting, things like that. And so I've just taken a step back from just the football player world and kind of immersed myself into the world of sports in general, the people of it. And I think that it's given me a good perspective of more than just the game of things. And I've watched the NCAA with a different perspective this year than I have ever done.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that's all we have time for. I know there were a couple more questions in the queue, but we got to let Britain go. So Britain, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck this season. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Awesome.
you have all these different receivers, your different talents, and you're working with different and new quarterbacks. And it's plural as far as we know right now. What's that challenge like as a receiver?
Yeah, it definitely is different. One thing that has benefited us a lot is our whole receiving core right now has game experience. In a way, experience is overrated, but with certain positions, I think it is necessary. And I think that I'm a better player now because of experience. So is Brian Thompson, Solomon Enos, Samson Nakua. And that kind of gets us ready to play with different quarterbacks. I'm really excited about this quarterback battle. I'm sure everybody's following it. And I'd say the most important thing you need to know about that is all three guys competing for the job right now were voted to the leadership council. And that says a lot about the quarterback room. It says a lot about the guys and the camaraderie, the atmosphere that they have in there. And we'll basically go to war with all three of them.